1, 2, 3, 4. I can subscribe. Send me an email. It's music time with Meek. Whoa, we're here. We're clear. We want to know about AC/DC. And here are my AC/DC credentials. Here is my yearbook 2000. This is graduating class 2004. What does it say? Friends working hard in their homes, looking for answers. Mine was Angus Young's guitar. I think that was a haiku. I left out excellent. Okay, so we got a reference to what is it called? Wayne's World in there as well. But truly, I have been obsessed with the music of AC/DC and Angus Young's guitar playing in particular. Since I was very young, since I was probably 15 or 16, this is probably what got me into guitar, really. Why I have an SG, why I have the SG with this particular bridge. Okay, so what's this video going to be about? This video is going to be about the 3 or maybe 4 things you need to be like AC/DC. Oh my goodness. Stay tuned. Stay tuned, folks. Okay, but yes, I really, I've always loved AC/DC, and so much so that I went and studied musicology because I did a master's studying musicology because I wanted to know about the notes. What is the secret? How can they be so rocking? How can this make me feel like this? Okay, and so here I'll give you a heads up. The last one of these things is going to be selling out. Oh, that is the last piece of advice for what it takes to be great like AC/DC. So we'll get there. But here, I got a little piece of guitar advice at first. So what I did was I analyzed the songs that AC/DC seemed to play the most. Okay, so I went through all their greatest hits packages and all their live performances, and I took the songs that they performed the absolute most, and I said to myself, okay, those reflect the AC/DC concept, okay? Because then I harmonically analyzed and broke down all of those songs to figure out what was going on. And so with regard to Angus's lead guitar style, what I noticed that he did the most was that he would take like a pentatonic scale. So like we'll stay in D, okay? So he would take a pentatonic scale. And what he would do overwhelmingly is he would add a note called the 6th to the scale. So if I was going to descend again. Okay, he overwhelmingly added the 6th note of the scale to the minor pentatonic scale, okay? So if you're looking to sound like Angus, that's maybe a really good trick. The other thing that I noticed that he did, so this is maybe why there's maybe 4 things, is that he used dyads a lot, okay? Another word for double stops, okay? And so what's that? He would use 2 notes simultaneously, and when you play those 2 notes simultaneously, it kind of creates that ripping sound. It sounds very rocking, doesn't it? Yes, it does. The other thing I noticed is that it almost sounds like a mandolin to me, like. Okay, well, things got weird there. But yeah, it sounds a little bit like a mandolin. Huh, interesting, old-timey. And so, anyways, those are sort of some of the basic things that I noticed about Angus Young's playing that you can maybe involve in your playing right now. Make sure you're using double stops if you're trying to rock, and maybe add that 6th degree of the scale, okay? It's situation dependent, which is the other thing that I learned from my study is that this Angus Young guy, in all of his interviews, he's talking about how I don't know anything. I don't know about music. I just play these notes. Just happen. But my studies indicated that at the very least, his ear is incredibly attuned because he always sounded great to me. So what is the second thing that makes AC/DC such a successful band, other than obviously adding a 6th to your hot solos, right? But basically what I'm saying with that point is that those guys knew what they were doing. When they were putting a song together, it was carefully crafted jewel, okay? Now, what's the second thing that it takes to be successful like AC/DC or a great band like AC/DC? Well, this is going to be shocking and hopefully not offensive, but you need somebody to be dead. Whoa! Okay, that's a horrible thing to say. But overwhelmingly, I noticed that when I was in high school, the individual we saw earlier in the picture, when I was in high school, a lot of the bands that were being marketed to me were bands that kind of didn't really exist anymore. Or they were very old, and so those bands are kind of easier to market, dare I say, because it's harder to tarnish their reputation by doing something crazy like I don't know, like having some sort of misadventure or whatever. And it's easier to market those bands that don't really, that aren't a bunch of young people getting rowdy out there, right? So anyways, the myth of the musician kind of dates back to this guy called Orpheus, okay? And one of the parts of his myth is that he goes down into the underworld, okay? The world of, where the dead are, okay? And he goes down there and he comes back, and inevitably. Now, there's more to that story, so check it out. But that is one thing that musicians, we're kind of supposed to do as musicians. We're supposed to know about the darkness, and we're supposed to kind of shine a light on that with our music and talk about it a little bit. And AC/DC was in a perfect example to do that upon the death of Bon Scott, their first lead singer. Now, in my opinion, Bon Scott is one of the greatest rock lead singers of all time. He was funny. He had incredible stage presence. He was a great singer. Just incredible attitude. And for him to die, through the misadventure, basically, of over drinking, this is horrible and shallow to say, but maybe that's a super rock and roll thing, right? In people's imaginations, right? I mean, obviously it's not, but in people's imaginations, that's kind of super rock and roll. And so you've got this band that has just had this major hit in Highway to Hell, and then their lead singer dies. But now we've got this album, Back in Black. And that sends them into the stratosphere of popularity, with record sales rivaling Michael Jackson, etc. And it's because AC/DC was able to hit upon that thing that makes a musician, popular or have mass appeal, and that is this: they're inevitably wrapped up with, notions of death. Okay, that and melancholy and all of these things. But AC/DC, they didn't do it. They weren't sad about it. They were rocking. Okay, like they rocked. It was insane how they rocked out of it. And it was just like we're back to life and we're screaming at the top of our lungs. Okay, which is so. Woo! It makes me feel good. I'm excited just talking about it right now. Okay, now what's the third thing that AC/DC did? Well, I already mentioned it. They sold out hard and fast. And I hope to exemplify this with the nature of this video, in fact. Because, for instance, I really don't want to make videos where it's 3 things to succeed in the music industry. But that is what this YouTube algorithmic thing wants. And so if I want you to see this video, I have to play to this YouTube algorithmic thing. And I believe that that's what AC/DC did. And a lot of evidence, there's some evidence to this. Like, for instance, there's a song called Let There Be Rock, okay? And AC/DC were very quick to point out that they weren't a punk rock band. But that song contains a straight 8th-note rhythm and feels very punk rockish from the outset. But then it ends up turning into like a bluesy kind of swinging thing at the end with a lot of with a wild solo. And so to me, that's one instance of them trying to appeal to a new movement, okay? That was released in 1977, arguably the height of punk, so they're trying to appeal to that. They're trying to sell some records, right? We're trying to sell a record. And then with Back in Black and Highway to Hell, they get this new producer called Mutt Lange, who seems to be quite attuned to popular music. And so all of a sudden, I notice in my analysis that, we start having more pre-choruses. The songs are slightly slower. There's a slightly different harmonic concept in Angus's solo, which is more, bluesy, potentially more accessible. And we also noticed that the song Shook Me All Night Long. And what is it? Okay, now that intro alone is very peculiar for AC/DC because it contains a major 7th in it. It contains a major 7th, which is highly unusual for AC/DC, who have never played it before. Also, there's this great interview with Angus where he says that he doesn't like the key of G. That song is in the key of G. He says it sounds too countryish. So their biggest hit is this song that Angus doesn't particularly seem to be endorsing as rockin', and yet it is their most successful thing, and it is probably the thing that sent them into like this pop world, right? So what is the lesson that we can take away from this? Is that you can play whatever music you want. Okay, I like to play whatever music I want. But here I am on YouTube with like 20 viewers or whatever, right? if you want to succeed in the music industry, you must sort of respect the times and try to adhere to whatever the paradigm or media that you are dealing with. And AC/DC did that. They had an exclusive deal with like Walmart or something like a couple of years ago. These people are like any other band. This is a huge sellout. But because AC/DC is just this machine of rock, it is difficult to deny them, right? But they did have to sort of change their tune a little bit in order to get out there and have people noticing them, okay? And so I suppose that's my lesson here, is that if you intend to make rock music your gig, you may have to do some things you don't want to do. And I pray for you that you don't have to fake someone's death or have someone actually die in order to really succeed. But that does seem to be involved in a lot of artists that we love's story, doesn't it? So anyways, I mean, that was kind of half joking when I said that, but it is part of their story. So that's the lesson for today. Be aware of the times you're in. You could maybe, if you want to sell some records or be successful, try to respect those things. Me, I'm going to keep doing it. I'm not editing this video, but you notice that I am trying to sell out a tiny bit with these 4 exciting ideas to be successful, just like AC/DC. Oh, 4 tricks to be. These 4 things will make you just like AC/DC, right? What is he talking about? Anyways, guys, like and subscribe. Send me an email. I want to be your music teacher, okay? I'm not as cynical as all this, if this came off as cynical. I just like having a good time. So anyways, see you guys next time.